The dying lights of Colony 7 flickered against the eternal darkness of space, as Kira Thorne picked her way through the debris field that had once been Sector 12. Her worn boots crunched over twisted metal and crystalline fragments, the sound muffled by her breathing apparatus. 3 days without a decent meal had left her hands shaking, but she couldn't afford to return empty-handed, not when the rent collectors would arrive tomorrow. The wreckage stretched endlessly before her, a graveyard of ships destroyed in the last skirmish between human forces and the unknown aliens that had been testing their borders for months. Most scavengers avoided this sector, claiming it was cursed. Kira preferred to think of it as untapped. Her scanner chirped weakly, its battery dying like everything else in her life. She followed the signal deeper into the debris field until she found it. A sleek obsidian pod half buried beneath the hull of a destroyed transport. Unlike the harsh angles of human technology, this craft curved like a teardrop, its surface unmarked despite the carnage around it. Kira's heart raced. Alien tech meant real money, enough to buy passage off this dying rock. She activated her plasma cutter and began working on the pod's seamless surface. After 20 minutes, a hairline crack appeared, then widened with a soft hiss of escaping atmosphere. The pod split open like a flower. Inside, 2 small forms lay motionless on what appeared to be liquid silver. Children, or something that looked like children. Their skin was pale as starlight, marked with intricate symbols that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. One appeared to be perhaps 8 years old, the other slightly younger. Neither had the grotesque features she'd expected from aliens. If not for the strange markings and the faint luminescence of their skin, they could have passed for human. The older child's eyes opened, brilliant violet, ancient beyond their apparent years. They locked onto Kira's face with startling intelligence. "Please," the child whispered in perfect accented English, "we are lost." Kira stumbled backward, her salvage equipment clattering to the ground. The younger child stirred, revealing matching violet eyes filled with tears. "Hungry," this one said simply. For a moment, Kira's maternal instincts warred with her desperation. These weren't just alien specimens, they were children, frightened and alone. But the gnawing emptiness in her own stomach reminded her of harsh realities. She had enough rations for maybe 2 more days. Taking on 2 additional mouths would mean death for all of them. The solution came to her like a whisper from her darkest thoughts. 2 hours later, Kira found herself in the shadow markets beneath Colony 7's main hub, standing before Vex Carlin, a black market trader whose moral flexibility was legendary. The children flanked her, still weak from whatever had put them in stasis, their strange eyes taking in everything with unsettling clarity. "Exotic pets," Vex examined them with calculating eyes. "Bioengineered, perhaps? The workmanship is exceptional." "I don't know what they are," Kira lied. "Found them in some wreckage. They're quiet, intelligent. Someone will pay good money." Vex's smile was all teeth. "In these uncertain times, people want comfort, something beautiful and rare." He reached into his coat and withdrew a single credit chip. "1 standard credit. Take it or leave it." Kira's hands trembled as she stared at the pathetic offer. 1 credit wouldn't even buy her a week's rations, but it was more than she had. The children watched her with those impossible eyes, somehow understanding what was happening. "We forgive you," the older child said softly. The words broke something inside her, but desperation won. Kira snatched the credit chip and fled without looking back, the sound of the children's quiet acceptance echoing in her mind. She didn't see the older child's eyes begin to glow, or notice how the shadows in Vex's stall seemed to bend toward them, like living things reaching for the light. The nightmares began 3 days after Kira sold the children. She woke gasping, violet eyes haunting her dreams, their whispered forgiveness echoing in her mind. The single credit had bought her enough synthetic protein to last a week, but food tasted like ash when seasoned with guilt. She told herself they were just alien specimens, but those eyes had held too much understanding, too much humanity. On the fourth night, the dreams changed. Instead of accusation, she saw flashes of impossible things: Colony 7 burning, ships descending from stars, and two small figures standing at the center of it all, their skin blazing with inner light. She woke to find her apartment's lights flickering in rhythm with her heartbeat. "Just a power fluctuation," she muttered, but her hands shook as she reached for the coffee dispenser. The liquid inside swirled without her touching it. A knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find a man she'd never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, with the kind of scars that spoke of military service. His eyes were storm grey and held the same haunted look she saw in her mirror. "Kira Thorne?" His voice was rough, like he'd been shouting orders in smoky battlefields. "Depends who's asking." "Jorik Kane, former Colonial Defense. I need to talk to you about what you found in Sector 12. Her blood went cold. "I don't know what you mean." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of him, leather and something metallic, dangerous but oddly comforting. 3 days ago, our long-range sensors detected an energy signature unlike anything we've seen. It originated from your salvage area and then vanished into the underground markets. "Are you arresting me?" "No." His expression softened slightly. "I'm trying to save you, and maybe everyone else on this rock." Against her better judgment, she let him in. He moved through her small apartment with military precision, checking corners and windows before settling across from her at the tiny table. "Tell me about the children," he said quietly. The words tumbled out. The pod, the violet eyes, Vex's offer. Jorik listened without judgment, his weathered hands clasped before him. When she finished, silence stretched between them. "You've been having the dreams, too," he said finally. It wasn't a question. She nodded, surprised by the relief of sharing the burden. "What's happening to me?" "Psychic resonance. Some alien species can form mental connections across distances. The children are reaching out to you." He leaned forward, his knee brushing hers. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through her. "Kira, those weren't just any alien children. Intelligence suggests they're Cathani, a species we've never encountered directly, but one that's been mentioned in intercepted communications. Their young are said to possess abilities that mature under stress." "What kind of abilities?" Before he could answer, every light in her apartment exploded simultaneously. In the sudden darkness, a child's voice whispered through the walls. "They hurt us." Jorik's hand found hers in the darkness, strong and steady. "That kind." Emergency lighting flickered on, casting harsh shadows across his face. In that moment, with his fingers interlaced with hers and danger closing around them, Kira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The possibility that she wasn't alone. "We have to get them back," she said. His thumb traced across her. Knuckles, a gesture both protective and intimate. "It won't be easy. Vex has connections throughout the underworld, and if the children's abilities are manifesting, then we're running out of time." As if summoned by their words, Kira's communication unit crackled to life. The screen showed breaking news. 3 more ships had appeared at the system's edge, their configuration unlike any in human or known alien databases. They'd made no attempt to communicate, simply taking position in high orbit. Jorik squeezed her hand. "They're not here for conquest. They're here for their children." Outside, Colony 7's defense sirens began their mournful wail, but Kira barely heard them. All her attention was focused on the man beside her, on the strength in his touch and the way he looked at her. Not with judgment for what she'd done, but with understanding for who she could become. The universe was tilting toward war, but in this small moment of connection, she felt like she might finally have found someone worth fighting for. The colonial defense bunker beneath level 15 hummed with desperate energy as officers scrambled to prepare for an enemy they didn't understand. Jorik had brought Kira here after her apartment became uninhabitable. Every electronic device within 50 meters had begun malfunctioning, responding to psychic emanations from the captured children. "Status report!" Commander Hayes barked as they entered the operations center, 3 alien vessels maintaining position at the edge of the system. Lieutenant Torres replied, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "No communication attempts, but they're scanning everything. It's like they're looking for something specific." Kira and Jorik exchanged glances. They both knew what the aliens sought. Hayes noticed their arrival and approached, her expression grim. "Mr. Kane, I trust you've briefed Ms. Thorne on the severity of our situation?" "She understands," Jorik replied, his hand finding the small of Kira's back, a touch that had become natural over the past 2 days of shared crisis. "Any word from the surface markets?" "That's where things get interesting." Hayes activated a holographic display showing the underground levels. "Vex Carlin's compound went dark 6 hours ago. Our surveillance shows energy readings consistent with what Ms. Thorne experienced, but amplified by a factor of 10. The display shifted to thermal imaging of Vex's facility. Where there should have been human heat signatures, there were only 2 brilliant points of light in the central chamber. "The children. They're fighting back," Kira whispered. As if responding to her words, the bunker's lights dimmed momentarily. When they stabilized, Zale's voice echoed through the ventilation. "System, Kira, come home." The assembled officers looked around nervously, but Kira felt something else. A pull deep in her chest, drawing her toward the children like a magnetic force. Jorik must have sensed it too, because his arm tightened around her waist. "We need to talk," he murmured against her ear. Privately, they found a quiet corridor away from the command center. Jorik pressed her against the wall, not aggressively but protectively, his body shielding her from the chaos beyond. "There's something I haven't told you," he said, his grey eyes intense in the emergency lighting. "The reason I found you so quickly, why I knew about the children. I've been having the dreams longer than you have." "What do you mean?" His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "I was there when we first detected Cathani transmissions 3 months ago. Since then, I've been seeing flashes. A woman with dark hair and defiant eyes, 2 children who hold the fate of the galaxy in their small hands." Realization hit her like a physical blow. "You've been dreaming about me." "Every night." His voice was rough with emotion. "I think they chose us, Kira, connected us before we even met. The question is why?" Before she could respond, his lips found hers. The kiss was desperate, born of shared danger and the weight of impossible circumstances. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his tactical vest, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Whatever happens," he said, pressing his forehead against hers, "I need you to know. I don't care what you did before I found you. All that matters is what we do next." Alarms began blaring throughout the bunker. They rushed back to the command center to find chaos. The 3 alien ships were moving, descending toward Colony 7's atmosphere. "Incoming transmission," Torres announced. It's from the surface, Vex Carlin's facility." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a scene from a nightmare. Vex's luxurious showroom was in ruins, furniture and walls twisted as if reality itself had been reshaped. In the center stood the 2 children, no longer the frightened waifs Kira remembered. Zale and Nira blazed with inner light, their violet eyes now filled with power that made the air around them shimmer. "People of Colony 7, Zale spoke, his young voice carrying impossible authority. You have 47 minutes to return Kira Thorne to us. If you do not comply, this facility will be the first of many to be restructured. The transmission cut out, leaving stunned silence. Commander Hayes turned to Kira with resignation and something that might have been pity. I'm sorry, Ms. Thorne, but the needs of the many— No. Jorik stepped between them, his weapon drawn. She goes voluntarily, not as a sacrifice. The standoff lasted only seconds before Kira placed her hand on Jorik's arm, lowering his weapon. He's right, she said quietly. This is my responsibility. She looked up at him, memorizing the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes held both fury and tenderness. Come with me. His smile was fierce and beautiful. Try and stop me. As they prepared to leave the safety of the bunker, Kira realized that somewhere between guilt and redemption, between dreams and desperate kisses, she had fallen completely in love with Jorik Kane. Now she had to pray they would both live long enough for it to matter. The surface of Colony 7 had transformed into something from an alien fever dream. As Kira and Jorik approached Vex's compound through the twisting maintenance tunnels, they could see the changes through grated viewing ports, buildings that curved, impossibly streets that folded back on themselves, gravity that seemed to flow like water. The children are rewriting reality, Jorik whispered, checking his weapon for the third time. This level of power, they're not just psychic. They're reality shapers. Kira pressed against his back in the narrow tunnel, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Over the past hour of crawling through the colony's underbelly, every accidental touch had become electric, charged with the awareness that this might be their last mission together. There! She pointed to a maintenance hatch 50 meters ahead. That should put us directly under Vex's primary holding area. They reached the access point, and Jorik carefully lifted the grate. The room above was dark, but they could hear voices. Vex arguing with someone, his usual smooth confidence replaced by barely controlled panic. I don't care what they can do, he was saying. A deal is a deal. The syndicate paid good money for exotic specimens, and that's what they're getting. Those aren't specimens, came another voice. Female, cold. Those are weapons, and they're clearly beyond your ability to contain. Jorik helped Kira up through the hatch, his hands lingering. On her waist, longer than necessary. The storage room was filled with crates and equipment, providing perfect cover. Through gaps in the containers, they could see into the main showroom. Vex stood before a tall woman in an expensive suit, clearly syndicate brass. Behind them, in a reinforced containment field, were Zale and Nira. The children sat quietly, but the air around their prison rippled with barely contained energy. The buyers are already en route, the woman continued. Military applications alone will recoup our investment 100 times over. Military applications, Kira breathed, horror making her voice catch. Jorik's hand found hers, squeezing gently. We get them out, he murmured. Then we figure out the rest. But as they prepared to move, Zale's head turned directly toward their hiding spot. The child smiled, an expression both innocent and ancient, and mouthed a single word. Now. The containment field shattered like glass. Chaos erupted as the children's true power unleashed. The showroom's walls began to melt and reshape themselves. Vex's guards opened fire, but their energy bolts curved away from the children as if reality refused to let them cause harm. Go! Jorik pushed Kira toward the children while laying down covering fire. The syndicate woman screamed orders that no one could hear over the sound of the universe bending. Kira reached the children as Nira collapsed, the strain of maintaining such power overwhelming her small form. Zale wavered but held steady, his violet eyes blazing as he held back the chaos around them. Kira, he gasped. We waited. We knew you would come back. I'm sorry, she said, gathering nearer in her arms. "I'm so sorry for what I did." "No sorry needed," Zale said simply. "You brought us Jorik. That was the plan." Before she could ask what he meant, strong arms wrapped around her from behind. Jorik pulled both her and the children into the protective circle of his embrace as reality continued. "To warp around them, the tunnel!" he shouted over the noise. "We go back the way we came." But Vex appeared between them and their escape route, his face twisted with rage and something that might have been fear. "You ruined everything," he snarled, raising a plasma rifle. Time seemed to slow. Kira saw the weapons targeting laser paint. A red dot over Jorik's heart, saw Vex's finger tighten on the trigger. Without thinking, she pushed herself between them. The bolt never came. Instead, Vex simply froze, his eyes going wide with terror as he stared at something behind them. Kira turned to see Zale standing, his small hand extended toward Vex. The black market trader began to dissolve, not into death, but into something worse. Complete erasure, as if he had never existed at all. "Zale, no!" Kira reached for the child, but Jorik caught her hand. "He made his choice," Jorik said quietly. "Just like we all do." The dissolution stopped, leaving Vex unconscious, but alive. Zale swayed and would have fallen if Jorik hadn't caught him. "Too much," the child whispered. "Need to rest now." As they made their way back through the tunnels with the exhausted children, Kira felt Jorik's free hand intertwine with hers. In the darkness, with danger behind them and uncertainty ahead, she realized that somewhere between desperation and redemption, she had found not just love, but partnership, someone who would stand with her against the universe itself. But as they emerged into the relative safety of the lower levels, the colony's communication system crackled to life with an announcement that chilled them both. "Attention, Colony 7. You have 15 minutes to surrender the children and their accomplices, or we will begin systematic sterilization of the surface." The real fight was just beginning. The war room had become a pressure cooker of desperation and divided loyalties. On the main screen, the 3 alien vessels hung in orbit like dark omens, their weapons trained on Colony 7's surface. In the center of the chaos, Kira held the sleeping nearer while Zale leaned against Jorik's shoulder, both children finally looking their age. Small, vulnerable, utterly exhausted. 15 minutes, Commander Hayes said, her voice hollow. "They're not bluffing. Our sensors show their weapons charging." "So we give them what they want." Colonel Morrison stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm. 2 alien children. In exchange for 40,000 human lives. The math is simple. "Is it?" Jorik's voice was dangerously quiet. He stood slowly, settling Zale in his chair with surprising gentleness. "Because those alien children are the offspring of whoever's up there. Start a war by murdering their young, and humanity won't survive the response." Kira felt the weight of every gaze in the room. In her arms, Neera stirred, violet eyes opening with awareness far beyond her apparent years. "The choice was always yours," the little girl said softly, her words somehow carrying to every corner of the room. "We knew what you would choose when we first touched your dreams." "What are you talking about?" Hayes demanded. Zale lifted his head, and despite his exhaustion, power still flickered behind his eyes. "We are not prisoners. We are ambassadors. Our people have watched humanity for centuries, waiting to see if you were ready for contact." "Ready for what?" Kira asked, though part of her already knew. "War is coming," Zale continued. "Not from us, but from the devourers, beings that consume worlds like yours for sustenance. Our people have fought them for millennia. We sought allies, but first we needed to know, would humanity sacrifice the innocent to save themselves?" The silence was deafening. And what did you find? Morrison's voice was barely a whisper. Zale looked directly at Kira, then at Jorik. We found her, one who sold us in desperation, then returned in love. We found him, one who would stand against his own species to protect what was right. The child smiled. We found hope. The communication system crackled to life. This is Admiral Vextai of the Cathani Defense Fleet. We demand the immediate return of our young ones. Commander Hayes moved toward the transmitter, but Kira stood suddenly, still cradling nearer. Wait. She looked at Jorik, seeing her own resolve reflected in his storm-grey eyes. Over the past days, through shared danger and desperate kisses, through moments of tenderness stolen between catastrophes, she had found something worth fighting for. Not just love, but purpose. Let me speak to them. Against all protocol, Hayes stepped aside. Kira activated the transmitter, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Admiral Vextai, this is Kira Thorne. Your children are safe, but they have something to tell you first. She held the transmitter so both children could speak. Zale's young voice carried absolute authority. Father, we have found what we sought. Humanity is ready. A long pause, then the Admiral's voice, softer now. My son, are you certain? Yes, the one who sold us came back. The one who loves her chose protection over safety. Their species can learn. Another pause, longer this time. When the Admiral spoke again, his words would reshape humanity's future. Then let us begin. 3 hours later, as the first Cathani diplomatic shuttles descended toward Colony 7's surface, Kira stood with Jorik on the observation deck, watching history unfold. His arms were wrapped around her from behind, her back pressed against his chest, both of them still amazed to be alive. Do you think we're ready, she asked, for whatever comes next? His lips brushed against her ear, sending familiar shivers down her spine. We found each other in the middle of an impossible situation, fell in love while the universe was ending, and somehow managed to prevent a war. I'd say we can handle anything. She turned in his arms, studying the face that had become more precious to her than her own life. Even the devourers Zale mentioned, especially them. His smile was fierce and beautiful. Besides, we'll have the best allies in the galaxy. Through the viewport, they could see Zale and Nira playing with human children in the colony's central plaza, their laughter carrying on the recycled air. The children who had been sold for a single credit were now the bridge between worlds. Proof that even the worst choices could lead to redemption. As Jorik's lips found hers in a kiss that tasted of hope and infinite possibility, Kira realized that sometimes the universe conspired not for destruction, but for love. Her decision to return, to fight for those she had wronged, had not only saved the children, but opened the door to humanity's greatest adventure. The price of innocence, she understood now, was never really about money. It was about the courage to make better choices, even when the universe itself seemed determined to break you. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it led you home.